All right, we are here. Sorry we are late. I had a very epic bout of I was busy, owning the libs, being so based and red-pilled in one sphere. I had to, rush over here to get to the other. It's definitely not because I forgot to put certain assets into the show tonight for the stories and irresponsibly had to do it right when we were about to start. That's not the reason. Of course, I was busy owning the libs and now I grace everyone with my presence. Of course, that's the reason why. Anyways, let's get started tonight, ladies and gentlemen. See you soon. By the way, it's episode 50. Let's go. All right, we're celebrating tonight. In a second. See you soon. We are live tonight from the great state of Florida. Welcome everyone to the VinceDao Show. I am your host, VinceDao. And before we begin, everyone be sure to leave a like right now on the stream and subscribe if you are new. We have 11 likes, chat. What are we doing? Leave a like on the stream right now. Obviously, subscribe if you are new. And as usual, if you want to donate tonight to Super Chat the show, it's all greatly appreciated in advance. God bless you guys. Now, I will say something about monetization, just as a quick note. We are being massively... My bad. I had the stream on the speaker. We are being massively demonetized right now by YouTube. Like every single one of the last few videos I've tried to post, even ones that clearly are by their monetization guidelines, every single one is getting demonetized. And then now it's giving me a warning saying your ad suitability is low or whatever. So I will say, obviously, because of that, your super chats are greatly appreciated. But also, B, I'm going to really show the Streamlabs link, right? Because the issue with being demonetized on YouTube, which I have no idea, could certainly happen, is that if you get demonetized, they won't pay you out. Right? So they pay you on like the 21st of every month. Say if we got demonetized June 20th, an entire month's worth of money, they just would not give you. They would just hold on to. So if you want to make sure that doesn't happen, because I'll be honest, I have no idea what's about to happen with YouTube, again, demonetizing literally every single video I post. Streamlabs is greatly appreciated. I'm going to look into soon to setting up a locals community or a website to try to get some of our monetization and income off of YouTube because, this is honestly pretty freaking ridiculous, and I don't know, right? Matt Walsh, Sarah Gonzalez, I know I'm a smaller channel, but we gotta start figuring this out, okay? But again, guys, super chats greatly appreciated. They're appreciated on here, obviously, but especially Streamlabs if you're able to do the extra time. We have our TTS set up there, unusual text to speech. Right, so that's all greatly appreciated. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show tonight. So a couple of things to talk about. Firstly, we're going to talk about this new LGBT law in Uganda and the response. Last time we talked about how Joe Biden and the Democrats were mad at it, but would it shock you to find that there's also a lot of people in the Republican Party demanding some type of intervention in Uganda over this very issue, right? We are going to talk about that, but first, since it is, and we're going to talk about Kohl's, by the way, as well, but since it is episode 50, I figured we'd have to do a little bit something special, right? So champagne glasses up in the live chat. This is now 50 episodes of the show. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? We'll certainly do something special for 100 episodes as well. But 50 episodes, again, you want to support, it's all greatly appreciated. Give us our 50th anniversary gift here on the show. But because of that, I figured I might as well kind of tell a story or do something a little bit special. And I went back to the very first episode of the show, and it was titled How I Became a Conservative, right? Because in that, I sort of told my story of how VinceDao became red-pilled in the first place. If you guys remember. Hold on. Is the stream up? All right, my bad. Hold on. Okay, no, I think we're good. I'm sorry. I think that was on my end. Okay, sorry about that. All right, but as you guys know, my very first ever episode, I kind of told this story about how I grew up in California when I was very young, as in when I was in 8th grade, right? I was kind of like a left-wing, anti-PC populist, and then I came over to the conservative sector, and then by 9th grade, I figured out I was conservative, and then I started doing this stuff. But I feel like I never really told part 2 to the story of how I started doing content and how we kind of got to the position we are today and what it was like being a conservative at a high school growing up right in Southern California. And so I figured tonight we might as well tell that story first and foremost for our special 50 episode special here right before we get into our 2 stories for tonight. So let's kind of get into that. Let's kind of tell that story. And hold on, sorry, my computer is just being stupid right now. Sorry about that. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't know the B-roll to put on this story because it's like, you're talking about yourself. So I just put up a video of myself, okay? So as you listen to, this is very conceited. As you listen to me speak about myself, you're going to see myself speak on the screen. But anyways, all right, let's get into that. So to recap, how I became a conservative, part 2. Where we last left off, I told the story about how, I guess growing up in California, I was always a little bit, conditioned more so to the left just by school and the people around me. And, my parents were never super political. And so, but at the same time, right, I always inherently just thought that feminism was stupid, all that type of stuff was stupid. And so in the last episode, I kind of explained how I started out, and again, this is like 7th grade, so before you're like, oh, Vince, you're so stupid. I was in 7th grade. I don't know what you want me to say. Did you even care about politics in 7th grade? Exactly. But in 7th grade, I was kind of like this Bill Maher style classical liberal, didn't like the PC, didn't like the woke, but kind of identified more with the left because I just thought that, I used to somewhat believe that the left actually believed in things like free speech or whatever, or used to, and then I realized, well, this is all facade. Over time, blah, blah, blah. We talked about the transition. We talked about how March for Our Lives happened, and I heard out the arguments and realized that I was a conservative and I identified with the right, all that stuff. But starting at the end of 9th grade, that's where we left off the last time, I had a dilemma to kind of solve here, right? So when I got, as you could probably tell, I'm passionate, right? When I got interested in politics again, and when I sort of realized that I was a conservative, I think we all agree the very first thing you want to do when you come out as a conservative is tell everyone, tell the whole world, you want to absolutely debate this and that. But at the same time, see, I was in a little bit of a conundrum because obviously I went to school in LA, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different than just being known as the guy who debated all of his teachers and yelled at everyone in class and all that stuff. Because I sort of made a judgment call, and you can call this cowardly or whatever, but I was like, okay, first and foremost, are you really going to change some libtard teachers' minds? Hold on. We got a $69.99 super chat from Daniel McQuaid. He says $50 US for the 50th episode. Keep on owning the libs, Vince. The progressive kind, the classical kind, all kinds. We support you in your conquest against liberalism. Thank you for the $50, Daniel McQuaid. Wow. Big shout out to Daniel McQuaid. Yeah, it's true, guys. You guys want to send 50 for the 50. It's all greatly appreciated. God bless you, man. Thank you for the big shout out. Sorry, I had to pause for that. Okay, appreciate it. Anyways, getting back into our story here. Okay. So I had a judgment call to make because it's like on one hand, yeah, could I be the kid who just is known as the conservative provocateur at school? Yes. At the same time, there's a few different things to consider. I mean, I guess it matters less now, but back then I actually wanted to have a good GPA. I wanted to, to get into a good school and all that stuff. And a big thing back then is I was number 1 class rank at the time. That's what I thought I was going to graduate with. And I was like, I want to be the valedictorian who gives a conservative speech, which some of you know the story. I've told that story before, right? So I'm like, I have to keep my GPA intact. Is that really so much worth it? And I was also like, what impact, what legacy does that really leave, right? I just thought about, I was like, is debating the liberals in class really so significant? Does it really do a whole lot, right? Everyone's going to forget about it in 6 months or whatever. And I was like, I want to do something that A, I'd be good at, B, can leave a sort of permanent lasting legacy, and C, reaches more people and is perhaps more effective way to sort of get out my thoughts than just, I don't know, just being the guy who yells constantly at the teacher. So I took all these things into consideration. And I also took into consideration the fact that in 9th grade, I was in a broadcast journalism class, right? So I, actually at the time, probably something I forgot to tell. At the time, when I grew up, I wanted to be a journalist, right? I wanted to be like a TV anchor for mainstream news or something. And I was like training myself to do that. And I was in broadcast journalism and all that. And then I just realized, well, journalists are kind of cringe. Oh, let me tell the story from my unbiased opinion. No, I'm going to tell you what I think, right? And so long story short, at the start of 10th grade, I decided that the best thing to do was to start an Instagram page, which I've told some of you guys about. I started an Instagram page. I wanted to be like the right-wing equivalent to a David Hogg. I made a bunch of videos debunking David Hogg, that bald woman, Emma Gonzalez, many such other things, right? And that's sort of how this whole project here started. Now, with that said, I guess the question is, what was it like being in high school and doing this conservative thing on the internet? Well, first and foremost, I will say I actually tried to keep it under wraps. I tried to keep it a semi-secret. Not that people wouldn't find me, but I didn't really promote it extensively, right, on my personal Instagram account. I more so just tried to start it, be a little bit separate. But it would all catch up to me. It truly would, because like at the end of 10th grade, I think actually the end of 10th grade, 11th grade or something, you could say I quote unquote got canceled for the first time. And I feel like I want to tell this story here. So, I was starting to make the content, all that different stuff. And then I remember one day I was out at lunch with my friends, and they knew I was like the conservative guy on social media. They didn't really care. They were still friends with me and stuff. But we saw a Planned Parenthood chat. Okay, I need to tell this story. We saw a Planned Parenthood, and they dared me. They were like, Vince, you won't go in there and say they're all murderers or whatever. You won't go mess with the Planned Parenthood. And I was like, and I think they said the Gen Z term is no balls, right? The term the youths use these days to do a quote unquote dare, right? No balls, you won't. And I was like, bet you don't think I'll do it. And so the first time I ever got in trouble, okay, chat, 10th grade, I saw the Planned Parenthood, and we did this here. Check it out. You guys are murderers. Thank you. Oh my. The video is so stupid in retrospect. I just walk in there. You guys are murderers. Thank you. But yeah, long story short. So this video actually went semi-viral. It's the first time I ever, I guess, got noticed. Oop, my bad. The first time I ever got noticed for something. And immediately, over time, right, the kids at my school found out about this video, and I was like I was in the deeps of it, right? Everyone was saying, Vince Dao this, Vince that, blah, blah, blah. Everyone is pissed off at me. And, I remember that. I experienced that at the first time. And I will say at the time, because I was still a minor, I actually had to, I think I put the video back up, but at the time I took the video down because we were getting threats and stuff. And, I'm a minor, I'm, under the jurisdiction of my parents and stuff. It was a bunch of trouble. It was a bunch of trouble. Okay. But that was the first ever experience I had with that mob. But I remember the second time around, and the time where it got really prominent, was 2020. George Floyd happened. I was more established by then as a content creator, making all these different videos. And then that's when kids at my high school really got pissed because I was, speaking up against the rioting and all that stuff and saying this is based on a lie, blah, 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 the whole usual song and dance. And I remember, obviously, they just got mad at me. They were attacking me. But prominently, their real big thing was they were starting a push to get my valedictorian speech stripped away. right? Because I was going to be the number one class rank. It was established. And that was something about like my 5D chess game. Like I said, that's why I never really argued or debated any of my teachers, because I was like, well, the best way to go about this, A, you're going to reach way more people on social media than the classroom. But then also B, if you can be the guy who gives a conservative valedictorian speech, that delayed gratification, right, is way more of a long-term payoff and a cooler way to go out than just being known as the guy who failed all his classes because the teacher didn't like him because he wouldn't stop yelling about conservatism, right? So that was going on. But yeah, they started this whole campaign to actually get my valedictorian speech stripped away. And I had to go into the school. This was during COVID. Had to go into the school and have a meeting with the principal about it. And shout out to this principal. I don't know if he's still there, but shout out to my old high school principal, you know, because this was LA, and you know, this is I don't assume he was a registered Republican by any means, but he just was an old school guy, and he said, yeah, why would your political views have any bearing on whether or not you're the valedictorian? If you're the valedictorian, you're the valedictorian. We're going to give you the speech, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, good, we're solid. But then it got way deeper than that. I remember that one kid in my high school actually doxed me at the time. He posted my home address on social media, on Twitter. And, you know, I guess perhaps not that it really like scares me a whole lot, but in the reverse, nothing ever happened to that kid, right? The school never stepped in and got involved, which maybe they really should have. We told them about it. I don't think anything ever really happened in that regard. But yeah, that was like my general experience in high school doing this conservative content creation things. I think, as you could imagine, I did have friends in high school, but yeah, being in LA and all that stuff, I was sort of the pariah. I was sort of an outcast, all this different stuff. And part of the reason now why I go to school in Florida is because, you know, beyond just politics and all that, whatnot, I looked at sort of 2020, I looked at where the pieces were falling. I've had so many experiences in high school with people trying to get me like in trouble with school and all that stuff. I was like, I really want to be in a school in a state where I'm semi-confident, right, that like my rights, I suppose, are protected, right, in the sense that, yeah, the libs can get as mad at me all they want, and we're never gonna have an incident where there's any degree of, hey, you're stripped out of school, you're kicked out. And so while I did get into a lot of these like bougie private schools, they were really never a consideration, because I was like, what guarantee do I actually have that my free speech is going to be protected? And so that sort of is the story of how we got to here where we are now and in Florida and all that stuff. Now, I will say, part of the reason I'm telling this story is because I very often get DMs, and maybe not so much anymore, but I still do sometimes. I get DMs a lot from high school kids saying, hey, like, how do I go about this? Should I approach politics? Should I be involved in it? Should I just totally ignore it? Right? What should I do? And so what I will say, I suppose, on that regard is, if I were to be totally honest, right, I absolutely encourage everyone to find the right way to voice their opinions and all that stuff, and to start, like, I don't know, I guess not college Republicans, right? Start like young Republicans, Turning Point, whatever it is on your campus, definitely stand up for things. But at the same time, I would say you have to make a very smart judgment call about where you want to take all of this, right? Because I will say this about me. I'm lucky that it all worked out, and I sort of knew from the moment I started doing this stuff that it was what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? It's what I wanted to do for a career and all that stuff. But you also have to recognize, right, if someone in the position I am, I could never get a job in the normal world, quote unquote. I could never, I mean, yeah, could I work some like service job? Sure. Could I work for some random small business? Sure. But I could never be employed by a corporation, right? We understand that. I could never go do marketing or PR or whatever for, you know, any of the mainstream corporations, which is fine, right? It's a risk I consciously have taken and admitted to taking, and I think it'll all work out for the best, right? But I will say to very young kids out there who maybe look up to me and kind of are want to do what I do, I will say, all things considered, you have to consider whether or not, like, it's a sacrifice you want to take. And I'm not saying to never do that, right? I'm certainly not saying to never do that. But I will say, you know, as much as I was hard-headed in 10th grade and knew this was exactly what I wanted to do, the truth of the matter is I've seen quite a lot of people who start doing stuff like this in high school, content creating, get into politics, and then they fall out of it and they begin to take very, increasingly less interest in it and all that stuff. And it follows them forever, right? It follows them forever. Because when an employer looks at you, they're going to see the whole record there and all that stuff. So, what I would say is that definitely put some skin in the game. We obviously need people in the movement, but I think there's nothing wrong with the process, I suppose, of delayed gratification, right? And this is something that I suppose maybe I should have gotten more. Well, actually, I did to a degree, because I said it is smarter for me to do this on the internet than it is to debate my teachers directly, because I want to be the guy who gives a conservative valedictorian speech and all that stuff. But what I will say, right, is that a lot of you guys who are like in high school, and sometimes I see people even in middle school trying to get into it, understand, right? You're making a life decision by being very vocally conservative on the internet and all that stuff, that if it ever takes off and becomes a very big thing, is certainly going to follow you forever. And you're basically giving up your entire life to do it. And you have to really answer the question, I'm not saying don't do it, because I do it obviously, and we all encourage more people to do it. But are you fully ready for that? And B, are you mature enough to truly make that decision, right? Because I will say, while I am lucky that I never sort of lost interest in any of this stuff, there is a degree to which, should I really, in 10th grade when I was 15 years old and you listen to my first video, my voice is totally, it's just like, it was crazy, right? Was I really properly prepared to make the decision to sacrifice the entire life like this? I don't know if that's the case. So I will say definitely be smart about it. There's nothing wrong with waiting to get involved in it, because, and look, I'm not saying be a coward, be a P word, whatever, obviously. But, if you're in high school, if you're the age I started, 14, 15, maybe take it slow, right? Maybe ease into it. Don't be a firebrand who walks into Planned Parenthood in 10th grade and, gets canceled on the internet, for doing that, okay? So anyways, with that said, just wanted to kind of finish that origin story from the first time around. We will get into these stories tonight. Magenta says, I thought Vince Dow was in Harvard. Yeah, that is true. That is true. I actually am secretly in Harvard. That's where I secretly go to school. I see David Hogg every single day. I'm like, hey, David, what's up? Why are you... Actually, as we'll get into the Uganda story, I walk up to him every day and say, why are you gay? Why are you gay? Who says I am gay? You are gay. This is true. And Panos E in chat brings up a very good point. He says we should have our own diversity of tactics. That's basically, you said it a lot more coherently than me. That's basically what I'm trying to get at here, okay? Is that, say, you want to get involved, you want to help out the movement and stuff. You need to, A, figure out where you fit in best, and then B, just figure out what you're actually the best at doing, right? Because I think a lot of people out there, we all want to make content because it's where the glory is, right? The glitz, the glamour, you get the attention, you get the pictures at the events and all that stuff. But, at the same time, first and foremost, it's also the biggest sacrifice, because we're the people who have to show our face and basically put everything on the line, right? But then B, on top of that, it's not the only thing the movement needs, right? And frankly, there's a lot of people who try to make content who probably be a lot better at doing something else, right? Whether that's organizing or consulting or doing whatever it is. And I think you need to be smart. I think you need to kind of analyze, sort of in the same way, right? When you start a business, when someone starts a business, they kind of look at what resources do I have? What am I good at? What do I have to offer? And how do I turn that into a profit? I would say if you want to get involved publicly in the conservative space, you need to do that for yourself, and it needs to be a judgment call, right? I'm not going to say a blanket thing of everyone should start a YouTube channel or whatever it is. I absolutely agree. I think we need to have a diversity of tactics 100%. All right, anyways, with that said, let's get into our actual stories for tonight. Just wanted to tie a bow on that, all of that, I suppose. Okay, with that said, let's get into the actual news tonight, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Here we go. Bang. Okay. Again, guys, you want to super chat to give us a 50 episode anniversary gift. It's all greatly appreciated. God bless you guys. We appreciate the support on the show. But anyways, okay. To introduce this next story, I call to your attention this particular video. Okay, so we're about to talk about the Ugandans, but every time we introduce a Ugandan news topic on this channel, you know what we have to do? You know what we have to do? Do you know what's coming? Are you ready for it? Too bad. You're gonna hear it.
We bring in the studio this morning one of the gay rights activists, Mr. Should I call you Mr? Sure. Pepe Julian Onzima. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me. Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. You are a transgender.
What shows that I'm gay?
You are a transgender, and you're a gay rights activist and an outspoken lesbian, homosexual. How can I describe you? Now, we're looking at the raging debate. You're a gay rights activist. Why should someone be gay? You're having a girlfriend.
Yes.
Do you perform the natural obligations?
I'm not sexually active right now.
So what are you doing with this lady?
By choice.
By choice?
Yeah. I've just not, I've chosen not to engage.
Doesn't that make you gay?
What do you mean, doesn't that make me gay? I am male and attracted to a female.
So who is gay?
I'm gay.
So true. In fact, I would like to, I think in relation to this new law, we need a follow-up interview with Pepe Julian Onzima. Thank you for coming in. What has happened to her? I kind of want to find that out, actually. But anyways, the story of the night, Uganda's president has officially now signed this new law that essentially outlaws homosexuality over in the African nation of Uganda. We talked about this a few months ago when it passed the parliament. We're doing a follow-up segment, and so now it is official, right? This is the law of the land in Uganda. Okay. Now, let me say before we actually get into a discussion, because we're gonna talk actually about sort of what I think about it, the implications, but let me first and foremost say that there's a lot of misinformation, mainly from the left, right, regarding this bill. So just to be clear about what this bill actually says, yes, it does prescribe prison time for having gay sex. It's essentially a sodomy law, very similar to like what the United States actually, people don't know this, used to have as late as, I think, even the 1960s, 1970s, laws like this existed in the US. But particularly, you keep hearing this, right? Death penalty for homosexuality. No. Just to be clear, it prescribes the death penalty for what is called aggravated homosexuality. And per the New York Times, this is a term that is defined as acts of same-sex relations with children or disabled people, those carried out under threat or while someone is unconscious. This offense of attempted aggravated homosexuality, which is, we have aggravated an assault in America. I do kind of get a kick out of the fact that the Africans call it aggravated homosexuality, but that's what they call it, right? But this, carries a sentence of up to 14 years. And if you read further here, basically what it prescribes is if you gay rape a child, that is what you get the death penalty for, right? So death penalty for pedophiles. Just to make that clear, that's what the law in Uganda actually says. Now, for the record, I think that is perfectly justified, right? And so understand, when people say, oh, death penalty for homosexuality in Uganda, that's not what it's about. It's about the death penalty specifically for pedophilia and specifically for raping children, right? That is what the death penalty in Uganda is being prescribed for. And so just understand, anyone who goes out and says this about the bill, either A, is lying and knowingly lying, which I think many liberals out there are, and if they are knowingly lying, then what they are making the defense for here actually is pedophilia. Because yes, do I necessarily think that the death penalty should be the prescription for every crime? Not necessarily, but pedophilia, I think that's pretty black and white. I don't really have much of a moral issue with that. But anyways, on the last time we talked about this, we discussed the fact that the Biden administration was threatening sanctions, and basically, you know, the press secretary and all that went out and got super mad about how, oh no, like, you know, Uganda, we're gonna impose sanctions on you, this is so wrong, this and that. And what I said last time about this was self-determination, right? I pointed that out because last time we brought up this topic, it was mainly liberals, it was mainly Democrats who were going out there and saying, how dare Uganda do this? The international community needs to be up in arms. And I said in response to that, I said, well, wait a minute, guys. For years, all you people said was self-determination in Africa, right? You guys have spent decades campaigning against colonialism and talking about how European colonialism was the worst thing to ever happen to Africa, and Africa needs self-determination, and we're going to make a million Bob Marley songs about it and all this stuff. And yet, very interestingly, as we do seem to notice, right, the moment that Africans actually self-determine, the moment that they are allowed to make their own laws, and, you know, as Uganda decides they want to say, why are you gay? Why should someone be gay? Okay, suddenly now the liberals become imperialists, and suddenly now they're saying, hey, you can't do that, right? Rainbow flag imperialism, we know the whole song and dance. And so that's what I pointed out in the last time. And listen, I will say this, okay? Whether you think the law is, you know, you say, oh, it goes too far, it goes too far. Who really cares? It's their business, right? It's their country. I actually genuinely do. I am a nationalist. I genuinely do believe in self-determination, which means I believe that Uganda absolutely as a society, especially a society that is 81% Christian, very traditional and all this stuff, they have the right to self-determine. They have the right to make laws the way they want to make them. And frankly, you know, unlike the liberals who pretended to say this stuff for years, I genuinely don't necessarily believe America should play world police. But that was last time. That was when we were talking about the Biden response to this, because we now have to talk about conservative outrage against the nation of Uganda. Yesterday on Memorial Day, Senator Ted Cruz. You hate to see it. You hate to see it, okay? Come on, Senator. All right, you're better than this. But he tweeted out, this Uganda, because that's how he talks, this Uganda law is horrific and wrong. Any law criminalizing homosexuality or imposing the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality is grotesque and an abomination. Okay, chat. As we just went over, right, what he is referring to as aggravated homosexuality, that's raping children, Ted Cruz, okay? So I will acknowledge, you know, maybe you're just ignorant. Maybe you haven't read the bill and you're kind of impulsively tweeting about this, which I think is problematic in itself, and you shouldn't be doing that. And that's kind of enabling the left by doing that. But still, regardless, okay, let's just point that out in case the senator here is unaware. What he's referring to as aggravated homosexuality is, again, pedophilia, is, again, literally raping children, okay? So, you know, Senator, I don't think that's grotesque and an abomination. Now, if you want to say criminalizing homosexuality, blah, 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 this and that, oh, that's too much. And then he says all civilized nations should join together in condemning this human rights abuse. And then to add insult to injury here, he tweets out hashtag LGBTQ, right? Because in the sense that conservatives are always the liberals of 10 years ago, we're not just saying LGBT, we're adding the Q. I wonder how long it will be until Ted Cruz adds the QIA+, and then the 2S. Have you heard about that one in Canada, the two-spirit one? But anyways, there you have it, okay? There's Senator Ted Cruz going out and saying this. Now, I will say, okay, to me, again, think what you will about this law, okay? You may say, oh, it's too much. This tweet is completely a virtue signal, okay? Because, you know, as an American, as a conservative in this country, you know what the biggest deal is to me? It's not how Uganda is answering the question of what to do about sexuality or LGBT or whatever. It's the fact that I look around in my own country, right? And Pride Month is coming up. We know all about this. I'm seeing child drag shows, which should not be a thing. I'm seeing pride onesies, okay? I'm seeing some of the most disgusting nonsense being projected on the airwaves in the education system. And honestly, let me just say, I think before conservatives go and try to virtue signal about Uganda for bastardizing freedom or whatever. Maybe we should step in and do something. I'm not saying do Uganda, but do something about the issue in our own country, right? About the fact that children are being groomed and we have all these problems that everyone knows about within our own nation, right? And that's what Ted Cruz chose to tweet about on Memorial Day, right? As we near Pride Month, which, by the way, maybe Memorial Day you should just stay away, which is why I didn't even stream, but whatever, fine. We're nearing Pride Month. We know about Kohl's, we know about Target, Bud Light, stuff in the schools, stuff on Disney, all that stuff. Instead of going out and taking a big stand against that, what is the priority of Senator Ted Cruz? I think those Ugandans are doing too much. They're going too far with the homosexuality thing. What are you even trying to do there? Huh? Ted, do you think this virtue signal is going to work for the left? Do you think the left is now going to say, I don't think Ted Cruz is homophobic because he said the Ugandan law is wrong? No, they're not going to do that. I think he's trying to win brownie points here from the left. It's not going to work. But, on top of that, right, it's a slap in the face to all the conservatives in this country. Because we don't want to hear virtue signaling about what a tiny African nation thousands of miles across the sea is doing. We want to hear answers and solutions to what you're going to do about the fact that, again, they're grooming children in our country, right? That they're promoting disgusting stuff in our country. And, so it's disappointing to say the least from Senator Ted Cruz to see that, this is apparently his priority, okay? So let me say, to the liberals, I say you should let Africa self-determine. I will say to conservatives, A, the same thing, but also B, how about before we start virtue signaling about Africa, we start, what's the opposite of virtue signaling? Virtue enacting, right? How about we start virtue enacting here in the United States? So to Ted Cruz, one last question for you. I have one last question for you before we end this segment. Why are you gay?
We bring in the studio this morning one of the gay rights activists, Mr. Should I call you Mr? Pepe Julian Onzima. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good morning.
Me. Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay. You are a transgender.
What shows that I'm gay?
You are a transgender, and you're a gay rights activist and an outspoken lesbian, homosexual. How can I describe you? Now, we're looking at the raging debate. You're a gay rights activist. Why should someone be gay? You're having a girlfriend.
Yes.
Do you perform the natural obligations?
I'm not sexually active right now.
So what are you doing with this lady?
By choice.
By choice?
Yeah. I've chosen not to engage.
Doesn't that make you gay?
So true. All right, we're going to talk about Kohl's here in a second. That'll be our last story, and then we'll do super chats. Do you guys want to do call-ins? We could do call-ins considering it is the 50th anniversary. I say that like it's 50 years. The 50th episode of the show. But first, let me get caught up here on our super chats. JD for $2 says, does a country cease to be if you replace its people? Well, calm down there, JD. Are you spreading alt-right conspiracy theories, JD? Wow, JD. But thank you for the $2. I mean, walking along the lines of YouTube TOS here, the answer is kinda, yeah. That basically is true. Okay. Sheeny Beanie for $2 says, Ted Cruz shops at Target. Thank you for the $2. And, this is probably true. We know for a fact he does. We know this is true. Dollar for $2 sends a YouTube link. What is this? He rickrolled me. How dare you, dollar for dollar? I can't believe he just did this. That did not happen. Chat, I just got rickrolled by dollar for dollar. Dollar for dollar, then in that case, I have a question for you. We
bring in the studio this morning one of the gay rights activists, Mr. Should I call you Mr? Pepe Julian Onzima, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me. Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Dollar for dollar, that's my response to your atrocious Rickroll. I literally cannot believe you did that. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, you guys want to super chat to support the show. Questions and comments, we will do an extensive Q&A here tonight. And let me check Streamlabs for any donations, because I am encouraging, if you don't want us to get throttled by YouTube here, Streamlabs is greatly appreciated. And we got one donation here. Let me see.
$4 donated $5. YouTube is demonetizing everyone so they can evenly distribute the means of production to the rest of the creators. They want to create a communist utopia on the interwebs.
Thank you for that, Joanna. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Joanna, for reading. By the way, that's my secretary, okay? So that's the other perk of donating on Streamlabs. If you hate my voice and you're like, I wish Vince had a girl on the show because I'd listen to that better because I'm a simp or whatever, well, there you go, right? Joanna reads all of the Streamlabs donations, so that is greatly appreciated. And it's so true. Thank you for the $5, dollar for dollar. It's so true. So true. All right. Perfect response. 5:30 is real. Is the stream down, or are you guys just referring to the fact that I got Rick rolled? Because I can't believe he did that, okay? We're literally dollar for dollar. We are going to send you to Uganda for this, okay? We need to make a petition to exile dollar for dollar to Uganda, unironically. Okay, all right, let's continue here into our last story, ladies and gentlemen. So, here we go. All right. So we've talked about Target, we've talked about Bud Light, but now the next company on the docket, they just can't stop doing it, they never learn, is Kohl's. So the company Kohl's is now busted because they've been selling these Pride onesies. Okay, so that's what you see right here on the stream. That's a onesie baby that's celebrating, Pride. Excuse me. Sorry for that, hiccups. Okay, so anyways, yeah, Kohl's right here, as you see, they've been selling these Pride onesies, and on the right, they have this image here showing that's a gay man, another gay man. Apparently, somehow they have 3 children, and they're all wearing stuff. Be proud, right? And so this is what they're doing. They're selling it to kids. They're selling it even to babies. They are fully encouraging the populace to put babies in, Pride onesies. And look, I think we get it. This is disgusting. They're pushing it on your children. We know the whole song and dance by this point. Obviously, to the best of your ability, we ought to add Kohl's to the boycott list. But the thing I want to talk about tonight, and, it's just as shameful as Ted Cruz, as we talked about in the beginning, I don't understand this. And listen, this has to be called out because we as conservatives, for once, are actually starting to be effective, right? We said go broke, go woke. No, go woke, go broke, same thing for so many years, and it never actually meant anything. And now we as conservatives are starting to cause massive bankruptcies at companies. We're starting to, really actually push back and do something and fight the culture war. And somehow, kicking and screaming, there are principled conservatives, quote unquote, that's what they call themselves so often, who take issue with this, okay? So we have this article here from the National Review, who, look, I still hope the best for the National Review. They're the oldest conservative, basically, magazine out there. But repeatedly, I just see things from them that frequently disappoint. And it's like, do you get it or do you not? Are you on our side or are you not? Well, here you go. New article from the National Review that says, sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. Really? So we have the National Review, again, the oldest conservative newspaper in the country, and the ones that are always talking about Donald Blump is not a real conservative and blah, blah, blah. We're the principled conservatives. We really support the real Reagan revolution. And all you guys forgot, even though, as much as they want to idolize the ghost of Ronald Reagan, to Ronald Reagan's credit, he never would have supported this stuff. Ask Ronald Reagan what he thought about LGBT. I think he'd tell you the answer. But still, regardless, okay. Sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. No, National Review. Actually, I think it's quite disgusting that they're pushing this agenda of blank YouTube you-know-what on not just little kids, on newborn babies, okay? I don't think sometimes a onesie is just a onesie. Okay, National Review, let me ask you a question then. So if there were a hammer and sickle, okay? If there's literally a communist onesie, would you say is a onesie just a onesie, okay? Or, you know, let's be honest. The person who wrote this, if the person who wrote this saw like a swastika on the onesie, would he write an article saying sometimes a onesie is just a onesie? No, but apparently in the case of promoting LGBTQIA ABCDEFG plus on children, now a onesie is just a onesie. So let's read through this article here and give you the idea. Philip Klein, or How I Became the Villain in the Culture War. Yeah, rightfully so. But anyways, he says, on the morning of Memorial Day, I glanced at Twitter and noticed some uproar over photos of a pride display at Kohl's that featured a themed onesie. Given everything else going on in this world, I didn't particularly view it as something worth getting into a tizzy about, which is a very I've never heard a man, for the record, I've never heard a man in my life use the term tizzy. Yeah, no wonder you're writing this article. You know, I didn't think I should be getting in a tizzy about it. That's what I hear, okay? That's what's being communicated. But anyways, he says, I sent out this tweet and got on with my day. I don't have a problem with this. If somebody wants to dress their baby in a pride onesie, why should it matter? We're not talking about transitioning minors here. It's just a shirt. Really? Well, what does the shirt represent, Philip Klein? Huh? And you don't think that someone who puts their baby in these clothes is not going to transition their minors or would not be totally down for that? Let's be totally real. Okay, but he says, oh, well, who cares? You're just putting it on a minor, which I'm going to respond to in a second, but I want to read more of this article first. So we continue here. It didn't take long for the tweet, blah, blah, blah. Some conservative critics lashed out by branding me a groomer, liking the pride onesie to a swastika and me a Nazi. Okay. But beyond the taunting, there were those who made an actual argument. It's not taunting, by the way, though. This right here, it is grooming, right? This onesie is grooming. You're trying to basically assert on literal babies that this is the lifestyle that they should pursue, which any conservative should disagree with because it's not a conservative lifestyle, right? And let me say, just to answer the question as to what's the big deal, what's the issue with it? Well, the issue with pushing any of these rainbow flag ideas on little kids, I'll tell you why. Because people will say, well, don't straight people push blah, blah, blah on little kids? Okay, whatever it is. Well, A, first of all, I think you shouldn't push sexuality to begin with. But B, in terms of like non-sexual human attraction, and by the way, I'm speaking to the National Review here, so I think any conservative should believe this. It is the normative state of existence to be heterosexual. Okay, do you understand this, right? We understand that in order for society and the human race and civilization to proliferate, you need people to be heterosexual, right? The primary function ultimately, biologically and naturally of sex is the reproduction of the human species, right? We understand this? Okay. So as a conservative, especially, you know, whether we want to disagree and debate about should Uganda be doing blah, 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 this and that, the pure fact of the matter is you should not actively want for anyone to grow up, quote unquote, to be any of that type of stuff, right? Any of the rainbow spectrum, whatever. Because as conservatives, because we recognize, right, that the natural function of sex is the production of children, and we should ultimately want to have children so that they can have children, so that they can extend a genetic legacy, right? We should actively want for our kids to be straight. Is that a hot take? I don't think it should be, right? I will say it on the record. Vince Dow absolutely wants his sons and daughters to grow up to be heterosexual. Okay, it shouldn't be difficult to understand. We understand this, right? If you want grandchildren, if you want your kids to extend the human species, your kids naturally would need to be straight. Now, with that said, it's also important to understand and to point out that despite all of the talk about how being gay is genetic, that is not scientifically proven whatsoever, right? In fact, despite decades of searching, there has been identified no gay gene. Okay, we've done this whole song and dance before. Find me the gay gene. There is no gay gene. It's not true. There is a degree to which prenatal hormone exposure can have an effect, absolutely. But the bottom line is there is a very large degree of rainbow spectrum stuff that is environmental, right? That is environmental. Nature versus nurture. We know that there's a high degree of this that is nurture, and that's a big reason why, statistically speaking, just as a matter of statistics, right, there tends to be a very high correlation between rainbow flag spectrum, identifications and childhood trauma, right? Childhood trauma. Why? Because there's a high degree of this, which is, again, nurture-based, right? Environmentally based. So with that said, if we can, establish that we should actively want for people to be straight because, human existence, right? That's kind of the necessary state of existence needed to perpetuate the human species. If we understand that and we combine that with the understanding that it is not genetic, quote unquote, there's a high degree of nurture that goes into it, then therein lies the answer as to why we should not encourage any of this stuff on little kids. We should not promote these themes to little kids because we should not want for kids to grow up to be on the rainbow flag spectrum. And I don't think this should be difficult to understand or explain to a conservative. It should make sense to people. I hope it does make sense to people, right? And so that's the reason why I say you should not, besides other reasons, that's the reason why I'm like, you should not push any form of rainbow flag or promote any of that stuff to little kids. I don't care if it's sexual or not. Because unlike heterosexuality, it's not what we should be encouraging on people. It's not what we should be wanting for people, okay? Now, the people who turn out like that, well, then we can have that discussion because, yes, it happens. But we should not encourage it. We should not want it in the same sense. We should not want people to have other mental disorders or whatever it is. Right? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. And that's the reason why it shouldn't be pushed on little kids. But we continue here. But beyond the taunting, those who made an actual argument said that I was being naive by viewing the piece of clothing in a vacuum rather than as a part of a broader effort by the cultural left to impose its agenda on kids from the moment they leave the womb. Yeah, 100%. What do you mean? What do you mean? They were accusing me. Yeah, that's 100% correct, Philip Klein, Mr. Tizzy. True. Yes, your critics are 100% correct. But we continue on here. Ben Shapiro summed up that view by writing, indoctrinating children into sexual fluidity is extraordinarily destructive, and yes, it is the predicate philosophy for transitioning minors. W take, very well put by Ben Shapiro. He's absolutely right. That is 100% the case. That's what I just said. And by the way, that's why you wonder why so much of Gen Z identifies as LGBT, quote unquote, right? You wonder why it's like historically high as compared to past generations. I know they very often say, no, it's just because the social environment. No. Listen, there is obviously a high degree of which that the culture and trends around this stuff cause more people to either think they identify that way or even in a genuine sense, arguably turn out that way. And I think you could also say that hormones and the stuff in the food and water, maybe that plays a degree of it too, especially in men. But yeah, absolutely. All of this stuff is increasing the rates of LGBT identifications in children. And again, for the reasons we identified, that should not be what we want, right? But anyways, we continue here. This argument doesn't make much sense. Why does it not make much sense? All right. The reason I agree with efforts to stop public schools from pushing lessons about sexuality and gender as young as kindergartners is that the gender ideology curriculum is a case of one side imposing its values on another. Yeah, that's the problem with it, right? The problem with gender ideology is not the fact that it's like satanic and twisted and evil. The problem is, I think we're imposing our views on others. I think that, they shouldn't be doing that. Come on, dude. Seriously. Okay, it forces conversations of complex and sensitive topics on parents who may prefer to discuss these topics at a time and manner of their own choosing. Okay, again, let me kind of re-emphasize this. I can't believe we have to do this. Okay. Yes, to a degree that is true. right? Many of these topics, especially regarding sex, should be things that are left to parents. However, that is not the primary thing wrong with teaching children gender ideology. The primary thing wrong is that gender ideology in itself is wrong. That's the reason why, right? That's the reason why. Because men cannot become women, because any of the rainbow flag spectrum identifications are not the normative state of human existence, and they should not be encouraged. Right? We should not actively encourage or want for people to do those things. That's the reason why gender ideology is bad. So you're just straight up wrong there. It's not because I think the parents should have to be able to explain transgenderism to their kids. No, sure, I guess, but most fundamentally, the problem with it is, again, it in itself is wrong and incorrect. That's the reason. But anyways. It says, in contrast, the existence of pride onesies does not impose anything on parents who choose not to dress their children in them. Oh my gosh. And practically speaking, any child who grows up in the type of household that would want to dress their baby in a pride onesie is likely already going to be exposed to progressive messaging on sexuality and gender ideology at home. Okay, listen. Sorry, I'm getting like hiccups here. Listen, I understand all of that. I get all of that. But again, why is he even writing this article? I have to say that. There's so many of these DC National Review types that I swear they always just want to hear themselves talk. Because, like, what are you actually saying then? What are you actually even trying to get at here? You know? Oh, well, it doesn't impose anything on them. But okay, here's the thing, okay? All right, Mr. Conservative, you're so about free market. Hey, free market, free choice, all that stuff. Okay, then you know what? We as conservatives then, according to your philosophy, also have the right to say we don't like Kohls and we're going to boycott Kohls, Mr. Philip Klein. So why are you even writing this article? Why are you even going out there and trying to explain any of this? It's just so silly. Oh, well, you know, okay. You know, if you want to use that excuse, then I use the excuse of I'm a conservative, I have the right. But anyways, we continue on here. I certainly understand expressing a general displeasure at parents using their children to promote their own political views. But given that there is a market for conservative-themed clothes, it's fair to say that the blowback at Kohl's had more to do with the underlying message. What a stupid article. What an unbelievably stupid article, okay? I don't have a problem with this. If someone wants to dress their baby in a pride onesie, why does it matter? Look at the profile. All right, I'm not going to be mean. But that's Philip Klein for you. Okay, well, there you have it. In conclusion here, folks, absolutely do not listen to this. I don't even know what this article is really trying to get at. Oh, well, but they should have the choice to do that. The parents are technically doing it anyway. Okay, so that makes it okay that Kohl's is going along with it? Like, what are you actually trying to say? And by the way, again, Mr. Conservative, in your whole free market, that also means we have the right in your free market to boycott Kohl's. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. And that's exactly what we should be doing. And yes, you are enabling the groomers if you're going to stand and counter signal that and say, I don't see the big deal with this. Absolutely insane. The principled conservatives, quote unquote. That's what they so often call themselves. And they will bring up things like, oh, Donald Trump is not a real conservative because this and that. But Ronald Reagan, and that's what they always do too. National Review. Ronald Reagan this, Ronald Reagan that. Again, but what is actually principled about the principled conservatives? Because Ronald Reagan actually would not have said that. Ronald Reagan would have been like, dear gosh, what in the heck is this? Okay? Mr. Kohls, tear down this onesie. Reagan smash. Right? That's what he would have done. So anyways. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our stories for tonight. So let's go to Super Chats. And like I said, since it is the 50th anniversary episode, we could do call-ins in a bit here. But let me first let's first do super chat. So Q&A, questions and comments that you want read and answered about any of this, or you just want to support the show, whatever it is, support the podcast studio that we're still in the process here of building. It's all greatly appreciated. So let me first check Streamlabs. Did we get anything on Streamlabs? Joanna, did we get anything on Streamlabs? I don't believe we did, but let me see. What is this here?
$4 donated $1.99 through Super Chat. My kids won't have an uncle that would make him gay.
Whoa! Whoa! Chill out there, dollar for dollar. That's a little bit of a strange super chat, but yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you for the $2, dollar for dollar. And this is true. Well, they always say praise Saint Reagan, this and that. Here's the thing, though. Ronald Reagan equal overrated Reagan. I mean, I agree. But here's the thing, is that I think the big reason why the National Review and all these types of entities are such shills for Ronald Reagan, I think what it's most fundamentally about is because they just don't want to be pro-Trump is what it's about. And so because Donald Trump is something of sort of the nucleus of attention and identity nowadays for the modern GOP, they will go back to Reagan in order to sort of make the case that, oh, well, see, that's the real conservative, this or that, right? But you'll notice very often that that's not even true. Right? The only reason they're so big on Reagan is just to prove we don't like Trump. Because when you actually get into the weeds of what these people believe, yes, Ronald Reagan has his faults, right? I have certain criticisms of the Reagan Revolution. But it should be noted that Ronald Reagan actually would not have supported a lot of the positions that the so-called quote-unquote principled conservatives claim to be so about today, especially on social issues, right? Now, it is true, yes, should Ronald Reagan have perhaps gone further on certain social issues? I suppose perhaps. That's probably the case. But Ronald Reagan did not embrace the LGBT agenda, right? Ronald Reagan would not have stood by Kohl's onesies, for pride. He wouldn't have done that. He absolutely would not have stood for that. So it is important to point out, yes, while Ronald Reagan does have his faults, and I am critical of him, and we've talked about that extensively, I think our memory of him very often is worse than it really was because the worst people on our movement now have basically adopted him just as a rebellion to Trump. Because when you look at sort of the actual tenets of the Reagan Revolution, there's a lot there that the modern quote-unquote principled Reagan conservatives actually don't believe in, which is very interesting to see. So, that's what it is. Andrew Mills says he's not the best now, though. We couldn't function with Reagan now. Well, I agree 100%. 100%. And there are aspects of the Reagan doctrine that completely screwed us over. No-fault divorce, amnesty. You want to talk about California, right? A big driving component in the reason why California today is a blue state. People forget this. California used to be a conservative paradise, right? California used to be what Florida is today. Right-wing paradise, beautiful, sunny all the time, beaches, beautiful women, all that stuff. Why was that? Because that was the old California. That was the California that Ronald Reagan was governor under. But Ronald Reagan specifically as president, that amnesty bill, I don't think California went red a single time after that, right? If I'm not mistaken. It might have gone red in 1992 or no, 1998. I think 1998, last time California goes red. And you see what it did. That one amnesty bill, all of a sudden, basically in the span of a decade, California became a blue state, and that's the state we know today. So, yeah, there are a lot of ways in which Ronald Reagan screwed over our movement, I would say. But at the same time, it is what it is, right? It's useless to look back and say this or that, right? We can only go forward. And, on top of that, I would say that overall, I think the Reagan Revolution was an important moment in our history, right? Because we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for the Reagan Revolution. But, I do think it's wrong to blindly pretend like Reagan was perfect in all regards when he was not. And then secondly, I don't think he should be the model of modern conservative identity, right? Because yes, well, actually a lot of his sort of tenets and beliefs are frankly quite outdated, and some of them were just outright bad and outright screwed over the country. So that's kind of my stance on Ronald Reagan, right? But anyways, dollar for $2 says California was so good because of the Beach Boys. This is unironically true. This is unironically true. Andrew Mills says, I am sure in the future Trump will not be for the times, just like how Reagan no longer is. I agree. I agree 100%. I agree. I'm definitely in agreement with you on that. California is the Florida of the past. Totally. Like, that's 100% true. And, you know, people don't really realize, having been someone who lived in both places, California is, especially Southern California particularly, Southern California and South Florida are literally the same exact place. I could even draw the comparisons for you, okay? LA is Miami. Fort Lauderdale is like the LA suburbs, right? So like, I don't know, you could say like your Burbanks, San Fernando, you know, Long Beach or whatever, right? That's like that, just the LA suburb. That's Fort Lauderdale. West Palm Beach is like Orange County, right? West Palm Beach is like Orange County with I should say specifically West Palm is like Newport Beach, right? And on the other side, Naples, Fort Myers, that's sort of like your San Diego area, right? Like it's a perfect, they're the same exact place. I'll tell you that they are the same exact place. Very similar places. It's just South Florida, much cleaner. And, you know, I guess much cheaper in comparison, although it's not exactly cheap there, right? They're the same place, right? And now where does everyone want to be? Central or South Florida, right? So, yeah, I mean, Florida definitely is the California of today, right? That conservative right-wing paradise that everyone wants to come to. And I'm sure it'll be like that for the next few decades, although hopefully we actually hold on, unlike, you know, California. But, yeah. It is very true. They're essentially the same place. Just different politics, different people, and, you know, I guess one is kind of an older mirror image of the other, you could say. Sheeny, and by the way, you say, oh, but what about like the country part of Florida? Well, then that's like the Central Valley, right? California has the Central Valley. You have the Mojave Desert, right? Kevin McCarthy is from the Central Valley and stuff. That the desert of California is like the more conservative part. And in that comparison, right, what's the more conservative part of Florida? The swamp, right? The rural kind of swampy or just grassland, whatever it is. It's literally, I'm telling you, it's the same exact thing. It is the same exact state minus San Francisco. Because honestly, Florida doesn't really have a San Francisco. But if you cut off the like middle of California and below, I can literally point on a map every single place in California and say that's where it is in Florida. It's the same thing. Agriculture, you know, the rural part with all the conservatives, and then it's the same place. I'm telling you, it's the same place. Just different, more bugs, alligators, and humidity. It's the same exact thing. Sheeny Beanie for $5, thank you very much, says, Kohl's is about to get JC Penney'd. Does Kohl's even have $1 billion to lose? We could send the whole company out of business. Thank you for the $5, Sheeny Beanie. I will say about Kohl's, listen, I'm confident. Let's go. Let's keep going. But because Kohl's is like a budget clothing store, I feel like there's always going to be a certain demographic of politically incorrect, but let me say poor people who are just like going to shop there. Although I think most of them really go to Ross. So we'll see, but definitely let's attempt it. If you can, stay away from Kohl's, right? 100%. But yeah, Sheeny Beanie says the Panhandle. Yeah, well, the Panhandle is like the Central Valley. That's what I would say. Or no, maybe like Central Florida, the rural parts. That's the Central Valley with the oranges and whatnot. Although there's not a lot of oranges these days. And then the Panhandle is like the desert, right? The Panhandle is like I-10 on the way to Arizona, Mojave Desert. That's what I would say. Javier says less crime, though. Well, okay, obviously. Okay, listen, my point, the reason I say it is because they're the same place in terms of, like, my point is that Florida is like what California used to be and still should be. Yes, obviously there's less crime in Florida because we're more on our game, okay? Excuse me. Sorry, I'm freaking just congested, hiccuping. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on right now. Okay. Donald Trump, Ken Paxton, 2024. Absolutely. Although, I mean, I doubt he's going to choose Ken Paxton as his running mate, but yeah. No, you know what? No, don't do that. Ken Paxton needs to be America's attorney general, right? Say he gets impeached. How Chad would that be? He gets impeached and removed in Texas, which hopefully he doesn't get removed, but he gets impeached in Texas, and then all of a sudden, President Donald Trump, number 47, is like, be the U.S. attorney general. Could you imagine Ken Paxton as America's attorney general? It would be wonderful. Be absolutely fantastic. So... St. Joseph says, bless you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bless you too. But okay, let's see. Any other super chats here? Let me take a look. Atheon says, thoughts on Ataturk? I don't know what Ataturk is. What the heck is Ataturk? I have no idea. Dollar for $2 says, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Fort Worth are great cities. Thank you for the $2, dollar for dollar. So I've never been to... Sorry. You're going to hear this all night because I don't know what's going on. I've never been to Houston. I've never been to San Antonio. Can't really comment on either of those. Fort Worth is all right. It's not the best place I've ever been, but it's all right. Stockyards are cool and all that. I will say, where are you getting Dallas being a good city from? Dollar for dollar. Let me say that. Can I be totally honest? Fort Worth is okay. Dallas is one of the worst cities in this country. In fact, I speculated actually made of the ones I've been to, it may be the worst. Let me tell you why. You're going to say, but Vince, Los Angeles, New York City, blah, blah, blah. No, here's what about Dallas I just cannot stand, okay? Number one, it is the ugliest city I have ever seen in my life. It is so ugly and bland, right? Because the entire city was built by like the JFK freaking modernist architecture thing, that like neo-federal style. It's an ugly city. It's like the ugliest city I've ever seen. Okay, architecture, all terrible there. All right, and it's an eyesore to look at. I don't like being in that place. It feels soulless. It feels just like it lacks any identity to it, right? And that's the thing about Dallas, is that you can say, Vince, how can you hate Dallas more than New York City? Well, the thing is, yes, New York City, obviously, if you were to tell me where would I rather live, I'd probably choose Dallas. But in terms of a place to be, New York City has a history to it. It has a culture. And you can see that culture in the building of the city, right? You still have, to an extent, like those streetcars and, you know, older stuff and whatnot. A place like Chicago, same thing. A place like LA, same thing. South Florida, Miami and stuff, right? I really like the South Florida architecture style, all that stuff. Dallas, there's like none of that, right? The city does not have an interesting like ancient history whatsoever. It's ugly. It sucks. It's incredibly liberal, by the way, too. It's all like, you know, deep element stuff. All I see is pride flags and BLM. You know, I don't think it's exactly something Texas has to brag about. And then on top of that, driving in that city, it's just like a nightmare. You know, the freaking million loop-de-loops. You would think that, honestly, you would think that a liberal built the freaking Dallas interstate system, because it's like, it's just ridiculous. I don't even know what's going on with it, right? Exit here, take that, those million loops. It's like, what the heck? Can you just build a road that like goes straight and gets you? It's ridiculous, right? I think Dallas is like one of the worst reflections in this country of the modern world, right? The roads are all freaking confusing because it's just all built for like commerce or whatever. It's ugly. It's cringe. Downtown is just gay. You know, I disagree with you that dollar for dollar. I think, honestly, Dallas is one of the worst cities in this country. I cannot stand being there. Good food, that's about it. That's about it, you know? And like I said, at least other cities can brag that they have like an ancient history that you can see in the city. You can't even see that in Dallas. It's just an ugly place. So, Hannah Salazar says, so true. See? Hannah gets it. Hannah gets it. Dallas is just ugly. It's an ugly city. It's an ugly city. You say Houston is amazing. Again, I've never been to Houston, so I can't comment on that. San Antonio, the Riverwalk looks really nice. I want to go there. I need a girlfriend to go there with. Okay, I'll be like, okay, we're going to San Antonio, babe, and then we just, you know, get the Italian guy singing, and she'll be like, oh my God, this is so romantic, you know. But yeah, Carice says, lol, I'm never going to Dallas. No, I think you should, Carice. I think you should, so that you can see what I am talking about. Because you will kind of see, you know, I know people often hear conservatives talk about architecture and all that stuff, and it's like, who cares? Go to Dallas, feel that lack of identity you notice, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, okay? It's such an ugly city. It's an ugly place. And there's nothing even interesting really about it. It's also boring. What is there even to do in Dallas? Besides, go to Fort Worth or go to something in Arlington, aka leave Dallas. Okay, so that's kind of my take on that. Let's see. Dollar for Dollar says bunch of Asians in Houston. Oh, is that why you like it? Dollar for Dollar? You see that? Oh, hello, Mr. Dollar for Dollar. Can I find your plane? So true. You said the roads were ugly. Both the roads and the buildings are ugly. If you guys have ever driven in Dallas, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, get on there and then loop here. It's ridiculous. You miss it. Like, people die every day trying to miss their exit. Oh, okay, I'm much 15 lane now. I need to make exit. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Dallas is a ridiculous place, okay? I would rather drive in California, which is saying a lot because it sucks. I'd rather drive in California than Dallas, Texas. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. You know? Sheeny Beanie says, what about Pittsburgh? I like Pittsburgh. I really, it's a small city. It doesn't feel like overbearingly large. You know, it has a cool culture to it, slightly more conservative in comparison to some other major cities. I'm a fan of Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think Pittsburgh is what Dallas should be, but instead Dallas is just loop-de-loop, blah blah blah, freaking ugly buildings, gay downtown, whatever it is. Okay, whatever it is. Okay. All right, maybe I'm finally cleared out here if freaking my nose is so congested. Andrew Mills says, man, Vince, you've convinced us. If Ken Paxton is unfortunately kicked out, we need him to be Trump's attorney general. 100%. This is what I am saying. 100%. John Calvin says Pittsburgh is base. Yeah, Pittsburgh is a cool little place. It is. What's that place called? Permanis or something? Okay. Pittsburgh was Metal Town. Well, that makes it interesting. It's like an old history, right? But that's the thing about Dallas. What was Dallas? You know? Pittsburgh is cool because it has that old industry. LA is cool because it had, you know, that's where Hollywood started, as much as Hollywood sucks now. New York is cool because it was just the mecca of the country originally, and to a large degree still is. What does freaking Dallas, Texas have? I know what Fort Worth was. I know Fort Worth started as the cattle town. That's cool. And they still, you know, keep that. What does Dallas have? It's like freaking nothing. That's why it's so ugly and bland there. There's no ancient culture. There's no really history, you know. Zachary for $2. We're just going to review cities now? Okay, let's do it. I'm going to give you my opinion on all the major U.S. cities because it'll be fun. Zachary for $2 says, what do you think of Seattle? So, I have not been to Seattle in a long time. I'm sure it's a lot worse now. I will say I did go when I was a kid, like twice. And hot take, this was before it got bad. I'm sure now it's like you're dodging Antifa at every turn. But the way I remember it, it was actually a decent place, right? The weather is nice, hot take, because I don't really like the heat. Which is ironic because now I live where? Where did I grow up? I like the weather in Seattle. Even though everyone says it's depressing, I like it. Pike's Place Market is cool. Seafood was good. Food was good overall. Space Needle was kind of cool looking. It's definitely a more modern place, but I remember growing up kind of liking it more for one of the modern places. Whereas Portland, I was never a fan of. Portland, from what I recall, is just a degenerate the one time I went, it's just a degenerate hippie nonsense. You have voodoo donuts and a bunch of homeless people where you can't tell if they're homeless people or hippies. But I do actually recall liking Seattle. I'm sure if I went today, I'd be like, this place has gone downhill. But from what I recall, it was actually a little bit cleaner and decent and stuff, and the public transport wasn't bad. So from my memory, I don't recall hating Seattle, although I might hate it now, okay? All right, other cities you guys want me to review? Are we just going to do this? But anyways, dollar for $5, thank you very much, says College Station is the gayest city in Texas. Texas Gay&M, home of the 12th man. They like having 12 men and their gay boyfriend, Kyle Field and Brian. Dollar for dollar, thank you for the $5. Hey, our Aggie fans won't be happy with that, okay? Which I know a few people who go to Texas A&M. This may be quite insulting, but you know what, dollar for dollar? I kind of have to agree with you. The freaking midnight yell. What even is that? They have this, like, have you guys ever seen the midnight yell? They have this effeminate guy go out there and say, the other team is going to lose because they are silly. So, yeah, you know, when it comes to Texas sports, I have to say I'm more on the side of UT than A&M. Oh, but Vince, UT is the liberal school. Look, I get it, but they're an old program, okay? What has Texas A&M even ever been, right? They act nowadays like they have high expectations. They've never, what has Texas A&M ever done, right? Because I think of Texas. I think of Vince Young. I think of, who's that running back they had before him that was really good? Forget, the name escapes me right now. I think of Mac Brown, you know, the classics, Red River. It's cool. Cool uniforms, cool fight song, cool history. What the heck is an Aggie? What the heck is a Texas A&M? I don't know. So I agree with you. Okay, and also I'm a Florida Gator. I go to UF, so you know, obviously A&M is kind of an op, not directly, but you know, we played each other this year and stuff. So it's like I have to tend to agree. I have to tend to agree. Okay. Dollar for dollar says I'm an LSU fan, not salty that they got upset to them and then I went to that game. Well, that sucks. You should have gone to the Bama game. I literally went to that this year. Okay. I had the privileged opportunity of storming the field. In fact, wait, where is it? I have an artifact to show you guys. I don't think I've ever showed this on stream. I don't even know where I put it. Hold on. Do I even still have it? Should I look for it? Here it is. Okay. This right here. Dollar for dollar, you should buy this off of me. You're probably thinking, Vince, what the heck is this? Is this weed? Weed? No, it's not weed. This is end zone turf of the LSU end zone from the night that they beat Alabama. Okay? No, Vince, that's clearly marijuana. No, okay, look at it. Look at it. Listen. You see that yellow? You see that purple? It's right out of the end zone. Okay? I literally ripped a handful of grass out of the end zone, put it in my pocket, brought it back. So this is authentic LSU Tiger end zone turf. And dollar for dollar, I bet you you're jealous. You wish you had this. I'm not even an LSU fan and I have this, okay? So you ever want to buy this off of me for a price of about, I'll say about $3,000. I think that's appropriate. If you ever have $3,000, okay, you can buy the LSU end zone turf off of me, okay? Real and true. Bradley says Vince smoking that turf. A friendly medic says weed. Weed. Grass is slang for weed. Yes, dollar for. I'll sell. You know what? I'm raising the price. $10,000. Okay, you can buy this for $10,000. Dollar for dollar. But yeah. All right, should we do call-ins soon? Let me see. Any last super chats? Let me see. Are we all caught up? Now, see, I knew everyone was going to accuse it of being weed. It's not weed. It is not weed. It is not weed. It is, okay. All right. Should we do them? Should we do them or should we just go to members block and then do the call-ins on the members block? I'm undecided about this. Should we do public call-ins or should we do members block call-ins? I'm going to contemplate this question. But Sheeny Beanie for $2 says, where is Lindsey Graham? Did the Russians get him? Yeah, where did he go? Lindsey Graham was in the chat earlier and then he disappeared. Lindsey, are you okay? Did my boss, Vladimir Putin, take you out? Okay? He's actually my secret employer. In fact, let me go call him right now. Beep, boop, boop. Niet. Zzz. Zzz. Hey, what's up, Mr. Putin, my boss? Yeah, did you kidnap Lindsey Graham? Okay, no. Okay, thanks, man. He says he has not. Okay, he said they have not. So I don't think that's the answer. But yeah, just casually call my boss, Vladimir Putin. I am an agent of the Russian state, as we all know. And so, all right, the members are saying they want a members block. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll do that then. But okay, then we'll do. Okay, here's what we'll do. We'll do super chats here for 10 more minutes, and then I'll do a members block and we'll do the call-ins on there. All right, let's see here. Alien Girl 111, a fan of Vince. I like him even more. Who the heck is Alien Girl 111? I gotta hold on. Let's see. Who the heck is that? I have no idea who that is. She is some Instagram page with 200 followers. Or no? Okay, she's a YouTube channel. How do you know she's a fan of me? Let me see. I don't even know who that is. I have no idea who this is. This looks like some girl who just talks about UFOs. Alright, I don't even know what that means. Dirty Mike, can you clarify what this... Oh, okay, she's in the chat. Okay. Well, hello there, Alien Girl 111. I was like, who the heck is it? Okay, so she's someone in the chat. Alright, appreciate it. Well, Alien Girl, I've never heard about you, but I will subscribe to your channel. There you go. You're very welcome. Dirty Mike bought you a shout out on the stream. Okay. All right, let's see here. Putin is a big fan of the show. Very true. Yeah, I talk to Putin every single day. This is a known fact. I talk to him every single day. Okay. I just call him up. Is that Russian? Isn't that what they... Sikabliet? Doesn't that mean like hello or something? Or does that mean like F your mother? I forget which one actually. I actually forget which one. But, you know, that's what he says. And then I'm like, hey, Vlad, what's up? But he actually speaks English. So I'm like, hey, Vlad, what's up? How you doing? Yes, I'm doing a good job. I'm running psychological ops on those Americans. Yes, of course. I got it. Don't worry. Be sure to send the rubles. And then I say sometimes, I'm like, man, the super chatters are not doing a good job. I need more rubles, please, okay? Please, Vlad, I need a raise. The super chats aren't paying enough, okay? And then he's like, no, you don't do your job well enough. You suck. He's quite mean. He's not the nicest boss. You're not doing your job well enough. You suck. It's not my fault. You're a brokey. Okay, go find your own money. And I'm like, I'm going to stop working for you. And then he's like, well, I'll kill you if you do that. And so I'm like, okay, fine, Vlad. I'll keep working for you. And then, this is a conversation we have. And then I'm like, you know what? I trust in your judgment ultimately, Mr. Supreme Leader. And then, I go back and I'm like, okay, so how today can we subvert the liberal agenda of the United States on behalf of the Russian states? Okay. And that's what I do. And then, every night I wake up in the morning. My alarm is the Russian national anthem, Dun, 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 dun. And they actually have like cameras installed. Okay. So every day, like if I do not wake up immediately and salute, the KGB comes after me. Okay, so this is obviously true. I am an asset of the Russian state. Everyone knows this. Okay, the libs constantly accuse me of it. I have to be honest, for 100% real and true. Okay. I'm going to blink 3 times if I work for the Russian government. So, In all seriousness, though, did you guys hear that Russia is building? Did you guys hear about this? I should talk about this on a story. They're building like a town in Russia that's supposed to be a refuge for American conservative expatriates. It's so fun. Like, Listen, it's a funny meme, okay? That's my official stance. It's a funny meme, okay? It is good. So when we all get deported from the country for, saying we don't believe in anal sex, we're all going to move there. We're all going to move to the Russian village. This is real. Google this. They're building a village for American expatriates in Russia. So we're all going to go there and we're going to, hang out with Boris the bear and dun, 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 okay? This is what we're going to do. All right, chat. Are you pulling up? Are you pulling up to the Russian village? Okay, we'll all go there and be based and red pilled from the village in Russia. This is true. We are ready. Okay. McAfee antivirus software says protect your personal info with identity monitoring. I don't think that's a super chat. All right. But yeah, guys, okay, we're going to go till 9:40 here, and then I'll call it a night. So any last comments, questions, super chats you want to send in, it's all greatly appreciated. And get them in now, because we'll be ending the stream very soon. If you want to donate to celebrate episode number 50, it's greatly appreciated, you guys. So definitely appreciate it in advance. Thanks for the support. Very much. Bradley says, I'm totally not moving there. That's the same with me. I am totally 100% not moving there either, okay? In fact, I will call my boss, Vladimir Putin, right now to tell him I'm not moving there. Beep, boop, beep, boop. I am not moving there, okay? Okay. He knows. He knows. Real and true. The Siberian territory of Trumpistan, based. Could you imagine? Okay. Yeah. Listen, I'm totally 100% not moving there, just to be clear. All right, let's get the stream to 100 likes before we go. We're currently at 75 likes. And Kair Sayer Joseph says, I'm turning Japanese now, or Russian. So the great dichotomy, okay, because I think Kair St. Joseph, he's like, oh, but my anime waifu. Your anime waifu's not real. She doesn't really live in Japan. But then B, it's like, oh, but we can, be bears on unicycles. You guys know the Family Guy reference? Bears on unicycle, okay? I do kind of want to see. I want to see if Russia really has bears on unicycles. This is a very pertinent question. But let's see here. I've always wanted to be like Edward Snowden, living as an exile in Russia. Well, as a formally registered agent of the Russian government, I cannot confirm nor deny this, okay? What if I actually did the show from Russia? You guys would never know this. What if there's I don't even live in the United States. I claim that I live in Florida. I've never been seen. I've never been spotted once in the state of Florida ever. I'm just doing this broadcast from Moscow. You would never know. You would never know. So true. So true. All right, let's see here. What else we got? Are Bibles legal in Russia? I mean, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Let's see. Millhouse321 says, I work for Xi. Well, there you go. See, we're all registered agents of foreign governments. We're all Russian propagandists in this chat, okay? I'm a proud Russian propagandist. Vladimir Putin just sent me a text personally. He says, you are doing a good job for once. I'm like, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. VinceDao, student at the University of Moscow. See, that's the thing. I could be, and you guys would never know. See? I feel like my brand is aided by a sense of mystery. So if I start to inject a mysterious story of my origin, maybe it's all not even real. Maybe it's all Russian psychological operations. Maybe you guys all now start to ask some questions. And now you're mysterious. You're like, is VinceDao really a Russian agent? Is he just joking? Is it all? Well, now you're curious. Now you're interested. Now you're like, I want to learn more. And that's what we're going. We're going to learn more. God Emperor Redacted says Vince was secretly the one egging Putin on to invade Ukraine. That's not true. I was the one telling him not to. I was like, sir, the military's not ready, sir. And he's like, I don't care. Just invaded. Okay. Why would I encourage him to do that? I would never advise Putin to do anything, because I am 1000% not a Russian agent. Okay. Thomas Jensen says, what do you think about monarchy, particularly hereditary monarchy? I mean, I don't know if it would really work in the United States, nor would it fix the United States' problems. I know a lot of people say, oh, there's some on the right wing that think if the U.S. just had like a monarchy, it would fix everything, and I don't really believe that. But I really principally, even if it's not the American system or whatever, I really don't principally have anything against hereditary monarchy. I know people will be like, no, representation, democracy. But I would actually argue that like a hereditary monarchy is the most old school human form of government, right? You know what I mean? And I think that to a degree, there's something to be said about how monarchies historically have been able to keep their nations together or whatever. And then to the extent that to which they don't, what happens? They just get overthrown. I mean, I guess fine. But yeah, I don't really have anything particularly principally against monarchy, right? It's just, is it kind of impractical in the US? Yeah, sure. But, you know, all these American patriots who are always like, no, monarchy is bad, blah, 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 this or that. It's like, okay, your country is kind of decaying and dying all around you, and you're really going to say, how dare, I don't know, freaking the United Arab Emirates for having a monarchy? Like, who cares, right? I think there are a lot of different places where if monarchy is the way they've always done things, then you might as well keep it, because it represents tradition, it represents the old order of things. And that's sort of the way I view, I guess, the British monarchy too, right? I know a lot of Americans are like, I don't like the British monarchy because of 1776. I mean, yeah, I guess I suppose. But at the same time, what does the monarchy represent? It represents where we came from, because as much as we want to pretend, which is, by the way, is a very liberal thing to say, okay, just for the record, right? It's a very liberal thing to say that the American Revolution was all about pursuing this new grand ideal. It was this progressive pursuit of something never being done before. Well, that's not actually the case at all, right? It is true, we did not formally want a monarchy because we were a little bit traumatized by King George. That part of it is true, sure, I'll give you that. But in large part, the American Revolution was a practical separation, right? We wanted self-governance, we wanted to rule. There were reasons why we wanted to do it, but they were practical reasons. Not unlike the French Revolution, they were not idealistic reasons, right? And that is reflected in the fact that in many ways, the United States is crafted off of Great Britain, right? You're like, oh, you know, Congress and the Constitution is so revolutionary. No, it's not. It's literally modeled off of Parliament. Where do you think that comes from, right? What is the House of Representatives? That's the House of Commons. Literally the same exact thing. And by the way, at the time, who could vote in Parliament? Property owners. Who did the Founding Fathers let vote, right? Property owners, right? The only difference is that instead of the Lords, you know, choosing you know, the senators, the House of Lords, it's the state representatives. We did not even have direct election of the senators. And the executive branch, the position there, a little bit different from the monarchy, but that's still the same idea, right? That's our head of state. That's kind of the symbol of our country. The leader of our country is the president. So really, you know, yes, there's this minor distinction where America formally decided we don't want to actually have an official monarchy, but still, you know, to pretend, firstly, like the American Revolution was this huge crusade against the idea of monarchy, that's not true. It was a practical crusade because the colonies were growing too big and too established and too independent for the current relationship with Great Britain to continue, right? We know it was not a progressive revolution because we actually did not change a lot of our society when we crafted the new country, right? We basically kept most aspects of British ideal and just sort of adapted them slightly. Unlike the French Revolution, where they said, we're going to like fundamentally overthrow the human order and all that stuff, right? So this is all to say, in regards to the British monarchy, I have nothing against the monarchy, right? I actually view the monarchy to some degree with a degree of respect and veneration, because I recognize that that is where the United States comes from. I wish no ill on Great Britain. In fact, I to an extent, view the United States as a sort of distant cousin or a divorced, maybe divorced spouse, you could say, of the British Empire and the idea of Britannia itself, right? And so that's why when the new king and stuff was, what do they call it? Coronated, right? I was not one of these conservatives saying, haha, we stopped caring about the Brits in 1776. No, I'm like, you know what? As much as I disagree with the current king and I don't like the fact that he's probably going to be the last monarch, good for Britain. We wish you the best, because and people will get mad because they just don't get it. Let me just say they just don't get it. The British monarchy is one of the last conservative symbols. Even if the current monarch is not conservative, which he's not, the institution itself is one of the last traditional conservative symbols in Western civilization. It is one of the last things you can look at and say, that is a remnant of the old world, a better world, a more virtuous and powerful Western world once forgotten, okay? And that's how I view the British monarchy, okay? So I genuinely wish them no ill will. And let me just say, there's a reason why in the UK, all of the people who are against the monarchy are the leftists, or they are the progressives, okay? And let me just say there's a reason for that. Why? Because what does monarchy, especially in Britain, but I would argue across the world, what does it represent? It represents tradition. It represents the way of old. As a conservative, I, appreciate the way of old. And so even though, do I call for a monarchy in America? Not really, because I just don't think it would work. I don't think it would fix our problems. But I have nothing principled against the idea of monarchy, right? Monarchy is actually a time-tested, proven system of government that has worked and has historically actually worked a lot better than democratic forms of government. Just saying, if you look at world history. Whereas on the flip side, the more progressive ideas that we are pursuing today, I would label 10 times worse than any concept of monarchy. Right, so there's my stance to answer your question. That'll be the last thing. We'll go to the members block now. But yeah, that's my stance on monarchy, to answer your question. I really don't have anything morally or principally against it. I'm not really an American monarchist, but it is what it is. But let's take a look here. Millhouse321 says a lot of traditions are bad. Okay, what is bad about the tradition of monarchy? Monarchies have built most civilizations in human history have been built by monarchies. Most successful ones have been monarchies. There were a few democratic ones before the United States. You know what happened to them? Just saying, right? You know what happened to the democratic system? Just gonna point that out. You want to talk about Rome? Yeah, you know what happened to Rome? The Republic, which was actually far less democratic even than we have now, the Roman Republic was a disaster. It was very corrupt. And what do? Right? By the way, that was not a hereditary monarchy for the most part, but you get what I'm trying to get at, right? So, I'm just saying. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with monarchy. I mean, do I think it would work in America? No. But, I think that a lot of conservatives just say, we have a republic and that's like the be-all, end-all. When in reality, you could... Whatever. I think people get what I'm trying to say. Miguel says monarchies restricted freedom. See, this is, again, people just don't get it. Okay. Then let me counter by saying that I see a lot of democratic societies in the modern world today, including the United States, that restrict freedom. So what does that really mean? Because monarchies restrict freedom. A democracy can restrict freedom just as much as a monarchy. So I don't see your point. I really don't see your point at all. I look around the Western world today, I see a lot of democracies destroying human freedom and violating human rights. So I don't really know if there's that much of a difference. I think the reality of the situation is any form of human government can be good or bad, depending, not any form, but many different forms of human government can work or not work, depending on A, the society, and B, the circumstances, and C, just, the overall situation, So I think if, for instance, let's compare it to the modern world, I think if the United Arab Emirates, a country that's doing very well right now in the Middle East and is very advanced and wealthy and all that stuff, if they want to have a freaking monarch who is like this genius monarch who's like, let's build Dubai, let's build Abu Dhabi, am I really going to stand here in the American democracy with all of our failing cities where we can't stop getting shot all the time and say, well, you know, I don't like that the Arab country there has a monarchy. Who the heck cares? Like, first of all, you know, good for them. And secondly, am I again saying that the monarchy would work in the United States? No. But to really say, to look at a country like that and say, I think this would be better off if we got rid of the monarch and had democracy. Yeah, how does that work in the Middle East? How has that historically worked in the past 20 years in the Middle East? So I think that's just a false analysis there, you know? It's just like I don't understand what is principally wrong with monarchy is the point I'm getting at here. And yeah, Eli, you're right. The kingdom of God is a monarchy. Correct, right? Which is funny because there's so many American Christians that claim that democracy is some type of Christian virtue. Where and how? That's not true at all. Heaven is not a democracy. Heaven is a very direct monarchy, right? And I would argue because of that. Part of the reason why monarchy is so prevalent in human history is because that's kind of the natural order of things, right? And again, let me say for the millionth time, this is not me calling for an American monarch directly, because I don't know how that would play out. I'm just saying that I don't understand what is principally wrong, supposedly, with this system. It's not principally wrong at all. It's actually a more conservative system, arguably, than what we have now. So just going to point that out. Anyways, here we go. Oh, wait, Streamlabs. Before we end the stream, we got a $25 donation on Streamlabs. Joanna, could you please read it?
Abby_Xiong donated $25. I hope you had a good day and your studio is coming along well.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate it. It is coming along quite well. We made the last purchases, okay? Bought the cameras. I'm very disappointed. I had to buy new cameras because of certain technological adaptions, and it was like freaking I literally spent $1,000 having to buy new cameras that would actually connect to the stuff. But yeah, the studio is almost ready, and it's gonna be quite fun when we start it. So, you know. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end the main show here tonight. I'm going to go over to the members block, so be sure to join the channel membership if you want to join us for the continuation of this party. If some of our mods could post the link to becoming channel member in the chat really quickly before we go. In fact, I could also help do it myself here. We're going to go over to the members block now, so be sure to join us there. We'll do call-ins there. I may react to some stuff. If not, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everyone who tuned in. We will be back tomorrow night for the usual show, episode 51 of the Vince Dao Show. So see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you for tuning into episode 50. Alpha moves only. God bless. And have a very good night and peace.